Hey everyone, this is Taehyung. Before anything else, I just want to know where you're listening from. Leave your country in the comments. I never thought my life would slow down like this. Not on a stage, not under spotlights, not when cameras were flashing or crowds were screaming my name, but in a quiet room where nothing was happening and everything was changing at the same time. Silence has a sound when you really listen to it. It presses into your chest. It makes you aware of how often you swallow, how carefully you breathe, how your heart suddenly feels too loud inside your own body. I've lived most of my life surrounded by noise. Music, laughter, rehearsals, interviews, applause. I thought silence was something I understood. I was wrong, because the silence that night wasn't empty. It was heavy. It was full of things I hadn't said yet and feelings I hadn't learned how to name. People think they know me. They think Taehyung is confident, playful, artistic, a little strange in a charming way. They see the smiles, the performances, the way I look comfortable being watched. They don't see the moments when I sit alone with my thoughts stretched out in front of me like unfinished sketches. Ideas half-formed. Emotions I don't know how to explain without sounding foolish or weak. Namjoon once told me that leadership isn't about being loud. It's about staying present when everything feels like it's falling apart. At the time, I laughed it off. I said something silly. I always do. But that night, his words came back to me with terrifying clarity, because staying present was the hardest thing I had ever done. You came into my life quietly. No announcements, no dramatic turning point, just a presence that felt steady in a way I wasn't prepared for. Jin Hyung noticed first. He joked that my jokes had changed, that I laughed slower, like I was savoring something instead of performing. Yoongi noticed next. He said my melodies sounded heavier, like I was carrying more weight in every note. Jimin hugged me longer than usual, the way he does when he knows something is wrong but doesn't want to force the truth out of you. Hoseok said my energy felt different, softer. Jungkook said nothing, but he watched me carefully, like he was trying to understand a version of me he hadn't seen before. 7 of us have grown up together. They know my habits, my moods, the way I hide when I'm overwhelmed. And still, none of us understood how deeply you would change me. I remember sitting across from you, my hands wrapped around a cup that had already gone cold. You were talking about something simple, something normal, and my mind was somewhere else entirely. I was stuck on one thought that kept looping over and over again. Loving you meant risk. Real risk. Not the kind you take on stage, not the kind that ends with applause. The kind that could cost you parts of yourself you don't know how to replace. I've always believed I was brave. I moved to Seoul young. I chased a dream without knowing where it would lead. I learned how to smile under pressure, how to turn vulnerability into art. I thought I understood fear. But when you said my name that night, I realized I had been wrong about that too. You didn't say it like fans do. You didn't say it the way hosts announce it. You said it like you were calling the person underneath everything. The boy from Daegu. The kid who left home early and learned how to belong everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The man who still doesn't know how to balance love and responsibility without feeling like he's betraying one of them. My chest tightened. I tried to laugh it off. I always do. Humor is easy, deflection is easy, but tears don't ask permission. They don't care about image or control. They came quietly, one after another, until I couldn't pretend anymore. I turned my face away, embarrassed by how exposed I suddenly felt. Then you reached for my hand. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't hesitant. It was natural, like you had done it 1,000 times before. No one had ever held my hand like that, not to comfort me, not to steady me. I've been protected my whole life, surrounded by people who care deeply about me, but protection isn't the same as being seen. And in that moment, I knew you saw me. Not Taehyung of BTS, just Taehyung. That realization broke something open inside me. I cried that night, not because I was weak, but because I finally understood what Yoongi meant when he said love strips you down until there's nothing left to hide behind. I understood why Namjoon carries his worries so quietly, why Jin uses humor as armor, why Hoseok dances like tomorrow is never guaranteed, Why Jimin feels everything so deeply it almost hurts. Why Jungkook throws himself forward without looking back. And why I, who thought I had faced every version of myself, was undone by the woman who would one day become my wife. The silence didn't disappear after that night. It followed us. It sat between messages, stretched itself into the pauses during calls, lingered in the way I started checking my phone more often than I used to. Not because I was afraid, but because a part of me was suddenly aware that something fragile had been placed into my life, and I didn't know yet how the world would try to take it away. I went back to schedules like nothing had changed. Practice rooms, meetings, fittings, cameras, smiles that came automatically, jokes that landed where they were supposed to. On the outside, Taehyung was the same. On the inside, everything felt slightly off-center, like a painting that had been nudged just enough that only the artist could tell something was wrong. You noticed before I said anything. You always did. You're quieter, you said one night, not accusing, just observing. I shrugged like it wasn't worth explaining, just tired. You didn't push. That was the dangerous part. You let the truth sit where it was, trusting that I would come to it on my own. That kind of trust is terrifying when you're used to managing expectations instead of meeting them honestly. The members noticed too. Jin Hyung teased me less. Yoongi watched me with that unreadable expression of his, like he was waiting for something to break or finally settle. Namjoon asked me once gently if I was okay. I said yes. He nodded, but he didn't look convinced. Then the first crack appeared. It wasn't dramatic. It never is. It was a message that came in late at night from a number I didn't recognize. Just a photo, blurry, taken from far away. A moment frozen without context. Close enough to suggest something, vague enough to invite imagination. My chest tightened as I stared at it. This is how it starts, I thought. Not with truth, but with interpretation. I didn't reply. I deleted the message. I told myself it was nothing, but my hands were shaking when I locked my phone. When I told you, you didn't panic. You sat beside me, close but not touching, like you were giving me space to decide how much of this I was ready to share. Is it bad, you asked? Not yet, I said honestly, but it could be. You nodded. Then we deal with it if it becomes something. If it becomes something. I admired that about you, the way you didn't borrow fear from the future. The problem was, the future arrived faster than either of us expected. By morning, the photo was everywhere. Cropped, reposted, dissected. Headlines that didn't ask questions, just made statements. Speculation wrapped in concern. Concern sharpened into judgment. Judgment dressed up as love. I watched it unfold on my screen like it was happening to someone else. Taehyung rumored to be dating. Taehyung possibly distracted. Taehyung's image at risk. Image, always that word, never life. My phone buzzed nonstop. Managers, staff, messages from people who suddenly needed clarity. Namjoon called me before I could even think. Where are you? He asked. Safe, I said. She's with me. There was a pause on the other end, not disapproval, calculation. Stay there, he said finally. We're coming. When the members arrived, the room felt smaller, like it always did when all of us were together with something heavy hanging in the air. Jin tried to lighten the mood with a joke that didn't quite land. Hoseok paced. Jimin sat close to me, close enough that our shoulders touched. Jungkook leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Yoongi stayed quiet. Namjoon took my phone and scrolled. They moved fast, Yoongi said flatly. This wasn't accidental, Namjoon added. I felt you shift beside me, Jin noticed. You okay? He asked you directly. You nodded, but I could see the tension in your jaw. I didn't realize loving him came with a crisis meeting, you said softly. Hoseok let out a short laugh. Welcome to our world. Instinctively, I moved just a little in front of you, not enough to be obvious, enough to be intentional. Jungkook caught it and raised an eyebrow. Look at him, he muttered, already in husband mode. I shot him a warning look, but he wasn't wrong. The company's stance came quickly. Distance, silence, neutral wording, time, everything vague enough to calm things down without committing to truth. No, I said immediately. 6 heads turned toward me. I won't deny her, I continued. I won't lie. The room went quiet. Namjoon studied me for a long moment. You understand what that means? Yes, I said, and I'm choosing it anyway. Your breath caught beside me. I turned to you. This is me choosing you, I said quietly. Fear flickered across your face. Relief too, something like disbelief. Yoongi leaned back. This changes everything. I know. Jin crossed his arms. You always were the bravest idiot among us. Or the most honest, Hosuk added. Namjoon nodded once, then we adapt. Later, when the members left, the city outside felt louder, harsher. You sat on the couch, hands folded tightly in your lap. What happens now? You asked. Now, I said, the world talks. I took your hands in mine. They were steadier than mine this time. And us. We keep choosing each other. You searched my face, then nodded, then let them talk. The statement went out that afternoon. Careful, controlled, but unmistakable. No denial, no apology, just truth. The reaction was immediate, support and outrage colliding at full speed. I watched it for a while, then stopped when threats started appearing where they shouldn't. This is my fault, you whispered. I slammed my phone down harder than I meant to. No, this is what happens when people confuse ownership with love. A knock at the door interrupted us. Security. More decisions being made without asking how it felt to live inside them. That night, when everything finally went quiet, we sat on the floor with the lights off, backs against the couch. Do you regret it? You asked. I didn't hesitate. No, especially now. You rested your head on my shoulder. I'm scared. Me too, I admitted. Outside, the city kept moving like nothing was wrong. Inside, I understood something with painful clarity. Love hadn't just made me cry. It had asked me to fight. And I had said yes. Morning didn't arrive gently. It never does when your name is everywhere. I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop on the table beside the bed, the screen lighting up the room like a warning signal. For a moment, I stayed still, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember what it felt like to wake up without fear pressing down on my chest. It felt like another life. You were still asleep beside me, breathing slow and even, unaware that the world had already decided to pull us apart piece by piece. I watched you longer than I should have, memorizing the calm on your face, because I knew the second you opened your eyes, that calm would be gone. When I finally reached for my phone, the headlines were worse than I expected. Speculation stacked on speculation. Concern twisted into accusation. Love turned into entitlement. They weren't talking about a person anymore. They were talking about a concept, an image they felt betrayed by. You stirred and sat up slowly, eyes adjusting. The moment you saw my face, you knew. It's bad, you said quietly. It's loud, I corrected. You took the phone from my hand and scrolled without saying a word. I could see your jaw tighten, your shoulders stiffen. They're blaming me, you said. They're blaming the idea of you, I replied. They don't know you. That doesn't stop it from hurting. No, I admitted, it doesn't. You handed the phone back and looked at me fully, searching my face like you were looking for cracks. Are you sure about this? You asked. About me. The way you asked made it worse. Calm, measured, like you were already preparing yourself for an answer you didn't want to hear. Don't ask me that like you're already leaving, I said. I'm asking because I love you, you replied, voice steady but trembling. And I won't be the reason you burn. Something sharp twisted in my chest. You think I don't get a say in what's worth burning for? You flinched just slightly. Regret hit me immediately. I'm sorry, I said. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at a world that thinks it owns me. And what if it does? You asked softly. What if they make you choose? I laughed bitterly. They already did. My phone buzzed again. Namjoon. They want a statement, he said when I answered. No greeting, no easing in, distance, neutral wording. I won't hide her, I said. I know, he replied, but you need to understand the fallout. I understand it better than anyone, I said. I'm still choosing it. After the call ended, you stood by the window, arms wrapped around yourself, the city unforgiving in daylight. They're going to tear me apart, you said. They already tried, I replied, walking up behind you. You're still standing. This isn't bravery, you said, turning to face me. This is war. Then let me fight, I said, not alone with you. And if I can't handle it, you asked. The honesty in that question hurt more than any headline. Then we handle it together, I said, or we fall together, but I won't push you off the cliff to save myself. The statement went public that afternoon, carefully worded but unmistakable. No denial, no apology, just truth. The reaction exploded, support and rage colliding at full speed, love and hate screaming at the same volume. I watched until your name started appearing where it shouldn't. This is my fault, you whispered. I slammed the phone down. Stop. This is not your fault. This is what happens when people confuse possession with love. Security arrived. Meetings followed. Conversations made without asking how it felt to live inside them. That night when everything finally slowed, we sat on the floor with the lights off, backs against the couch. Do you regret it? You asked again. No, I said, even now, especially now. You rested your head on my shoulder. I'm scared. Me too. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, something settled. Love hadn't just made me cry, it had forced me to choose. And I had chosen. The next days blurred together. Some people called me brave, others called me reckless. A few called me selfish. They argued about my sincerity like it was a product review, not a life decision. I stopped reading. You didn't. One evening, you slammed your laptop shut so hard it made me flinch. I hate them, you said. Which ones? I asked quietly. All of them, you snapped. The ones who say you're ruined, the ones who say you used me, the ones who say I trapped you. I stood and stepped toward you. Come here. You shook your head. No, I don't want comfort, I want justice. Despite everything, I almost smiled. You're asking the wrong man if you want justice from the internet. You laughed, sharp and broken. I never asked for this war. I know, I said. I dragged you into it. You didn't drag me, you shot back. I walked in, but don't pretend you're the only one bleeding. That was when I realized how tired you were. Not angry, not scared, just exhausted. I don't know how to protect you from this, I admitted. Stop trying to protect me, you said softly. Stand with me. The words landed differently this time. This time I understood them. Days later, the members came over without warning. No cameras, no managers, just them. You're disappearing, Yoongi said bluntly. I'm still here, I replied. Physically, he said. Mentally, you're drifting. Namjoon nodded slowly. That's the real fear, isn't it? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Later that night, you found me staring at my reflection in the darkened window. Do you miss it? You asked. I miss knowing who I was when I woke up, I said. Now every choice feels like it takes something from me. You touched my arm. It also gives something. Does it? I asked bitterly. Only if you stop measuring your life by what other people take from you, you said. Measure it by what you're brave enough to keep. I looked at you, and for the first time since everything began to fall apart, I felt something steadier than fear. Not certainty. Resolve. And I knew whatever came next would test that resolve in ways I wasn't ready for yet. But I also knew I wouldn't turn away. Not now. Not from you. The next shock came without warning. It never arrives when you're ready, only when you think you've already survived the worst of it. I woke up to a message from Namjoon that was shorter than usual, stripped of warmth in a way that told me everything before I even read the words twice. Emergency meeting. Today. Noon. No details. You were sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor like it had personally offended you. They're grounding you, you said quietly. They're protecting the brand, I replied, though the words tasted wrong the moment they left my mouth. And what about you, you asked. I didn't have an answer. When I confronted them, the room felt colder than usual. Too clean, too calm. Words like temporary, reflection, regrouping were placed carefully on the table like they were meant to soften the blow. They talked about optics, timing, risk management. They talked around you, not to you, like you were a variable, not a person. A hiatus, one of them said gently. A solo pause until things calmed down. You're punishing me, I said. We're managing fallout, they corrected. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Call it what it is. That night when I told you what they had decided, your face crumpled in a way I will never forget. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, like something inside you had folded in on itself. Because of me, you asked. No, I said immediately, stepping closer. Because I chose you. Tears spilled before you could stop them. I never wanted to cost you your dream. You didn't, I said, pulling you into my arms. You showed me a bigger one. Outside, the world kept arguing about whether I had ruined my legacy. Inside, I was learning that love wasn't just about standing tall together. Sometimes it was about falling apart honestly and choosing each other anyway. The hiatus became real the moment my schedule disappeared. No rehearsals, no recordings, no late nights in the studio where exhaustion felt familiar instead of frightening. Just empty days that stretched too wide, leaving space for thoughts I'd spent years outrunning. The world reacted exactly how everyone predicted, and still somehow worse. Some called it noble, others called it betrayal, a few called it manipulation. They debated my sincerity like it was a product review, not a life decision. You read everything. I pretended not to. One evening, you slammed your laptop shut so hard it made me flinch. I hate them, you said. Which ones? I asked. All of them, you snapped. The ones who say you're ruined, the ones who say you used me, the ones who say I trapped you. I stood slowly. Come here. You shook your head. No, I don't want comfort, I want justice. You're asking the wrong man if you want justice from the internet, I said softly. You laughed, sharp and broken. I never asked for this war. I know, I replied. I dragged you into it. You didn't drag me, you said, stepping closer, eyes burning. I walked in, but don't pretend you're the only one bleeding. That was the moment I realized how tired you were, not scared, not angry, tired. I don't know how to protect you from this, I admitted. Stop trying to protect me, you said. Stand with me. Days later, the members came over without warning. No cameras, no managers, just them. You're disappearing, Yoongi said, sitting across from me. I'm still here, I replied. Physically, he said. Mentally, you're drifting. Namjoon nodded. That's the real fear. Later, after they left, you found me staring at my reflection in the dark window. Do you miss it? You asked. I miss knowing who I was when I woke up, I said. Now every choice feels like it takes something from me. You touched my arm. It also gives something. Does it? I asked bitterly. It does, you said firmly. You just don't see it yet. The argument that followed wasn't loud. It was worse. Calm, controlled. Every word placed carefully like it could shatter something fragile. You think love means shielding, you said. Standing in front of everything, but love also means listening. I'm trying to keep you safe, I said. And I'm trying not to lose myself in your world, you replied. The words cut deeper because they weren't meant to wound. They were meant to be honest. Later that night, when exhaustion finally won, we sat on opposite ends of the couch, tension thick enough to choke on. Jin broke it the next day with brutal clarity. "You two are in love," he said, "and you're both being idiots about it." Yoongi nodded. "You can't control chaos by tightening your grip. You'll just crush what you're holding." You looked at me, eyes softer but tired. "I don't want to be your weakness," you said. "I want to be your partner." I swallowed hard. "I don't know how to do this without hurting you." "Then learn," you said. "With me, not for me." 2 days later, another leak hit. A press conference announcement before we could prepare. Words like reflection, uncertainty, possible departure floated through headlines like vultures. "They're letting people believe you're leaving," you said. "They want to see who blinks first," I replied. "And what if it's you?" I looked at you and felt something settle in my chest. Then I walk away knowing I chose myself. Your breath caught, and me. "I chose you first," I said. That night, as the city glowed faintly beyond the curtains, you whispered, "If everything burns." "Then we build something smaller," I said without hesitation. "Quieter, ours." You turned toward me, tears shining in the dark. Outside, the world was still arguing about whether I was worth loving like this. Inside, I already had my answer. And for the first time in my life, I knew I would never go back to living half alive just to be adored. Silence became the loudest thing in my life. Not the peaceful kind people romanticize, but the heavy, pressurized quiet that follows an explosion. The kind that rings in your ears long after the noise is gone. No schedules, no alarms, no managers knocking on the door, just time, too much of it. At first I tried to fill it. I woke up early out of habit, went for long walks with my hood pulled low, letting the city pass me by like I was a stranger instead of someone it once watched closely. People still recognized me sometimes. A pause, a double take, then either a smile filled with sympathy or a look weighed down by disappointment. Both felt the same. You walked beside me most days, not speaking much, just matching my pace. It was the first time in years I'd allowed someone to share my quiet without feeling like I had to perform inside it. The headlines slowed but never disappeared. They just shifted tone, from outrage to speculation, from speculation to concern, from concern to prediction. They debated how long I would last like this, how long before I cracked, how long before I came back crawling. They underestimated how much cracking I'd already done. One afternoon, we sat in a small cafe tucked away on a side street, the kind of place with scratched wooden tables and a bell on the door that rang too loudly. You watched the steam rise from your cup like it was trying to tell you something. "Do you still love music?" you asked quietly. The question caught me off guard, not because it was painful, but because no one had asked it without expectation attached in a long time. "I don't know how to separate it from everything else," I admitted. "From the pressure, the ownership, the noise." "That doesn't mean the love is gone," you said. "It just means it's buried." That night I went into the studio alone for the first time since the hiatus began. No producers, no staff, just me and the dim red light above the console. I didn't turn anything on right away. I just sat there, letting the room breathe. When I finally picked up the microphone, my hands shook. The first take was a mess. My voice cracked, not artistically, honestly. I stopped and laughed under my breath, more exhausted than embarrassed. I wasn't the same person who'd walked into studios for years with confidence sharpened by repetition. I was softer now, more exposed. And somehow that felt truer. I didn't record for charts. I didn't think about audiences. I sang the things I hadn't said out loud: fear, anger, gratitude, love. The kind that didn't ask permission or apologize for existing. When I got home, you were sitting on the floor back against the couch, reading. You looked up the moment I entered. "You went," you said. I nodded, I remembered. You smiled, not wide, not triumphant, just relieved. The next few weeks became something new, not recovery, not retreat, something in between. I wrote, I cooked, I slept without dreams chasing me awake. We argued sometimes. Small, human disagreements that didn't carry the weight of the world on their backs, and when we made up it felt earned, not dramatic. The public, however, refused to let the story rest. A rumor surfaced that I was done, that I'd chosen love over art and lost both. Another claimed I was being controlled, manipulated, diminished. They couldn't stand the idea that I might have chosen a quieter version of myself willingly. One night after another wave of articles dropped, you broke down in a way you'd been holding back for weeks. Not loud, not theatrical, just tears slipping down your face while you stared at the wall. I never wanted to be the reason you shrank. You said. I knelt in front of you and took your hands. I didn't shrink, I said firmly. I condensed. There's a difference. You looked at me like you were trying to decide whether to believe it. I was stretched thin before, I continued, pulled in too many directions. This is me learning my shape again. You leaned forward, resting your forehead against mine. I'm scared the world will never forgive you. I don't need it to, I said. I need to forgive myself for living half a life. The call came late one evening, a familiar number, a familiar pause before the voice spoke. They want to talk, Namjoon said. Not about damage control, about the future. I closed my eyes, my future or theirs. He exhaled softly. That's what we need to decide. After the call, I didn't say anything right away. You watched me carefully, reading the tension settle back into my shoulders. You don't have to go back, you said, not as a plea, as a statement. I know, I replied. And if you do, you continued, it has to be because it feeds you, not because you're afraid of disappearing. I reach for your hand. That's exactly why I'm not answering yet. That night I dreamed for the first time in months, not of stages or crowds or applause. I dreamed of standing in a room full of light, singing without anyone watching. When I woke up, my pillow was wet. I didn't cry because I was sad. I cried because I finally understood why love had broken me open instead of tearing me apart. It wasn't the kind of love that demanded sacrifice. It was the kind that demanded honesty. And I knew the next choice I made would be the most important one yet. The meeting was scheduled for 10 in the morning, but I arrived early. Old habits die hard. The building felt the same, yet everything about me felt different walking through those doors. The walls still carried echoes of past victories, late nights, laughter that admitted exhaustion but never fear. This time, fear walked in with me, but so did clarity. They spoke first, carefully, respectfully, as if they had learned something from watching everything burn too close to the surface. They talked about evolution, about time, about how the world had changed and how maybe, just maybe, they needed to change with it. They didn't apologize directly. Institutions rarely do. Instead, they offered possibilities, a slower return, creative control, boundaries that would have been unthinkable years ago. I listened, truly listened, not with desperation, not with resentment, just attention. When they finished, the room waited. I don't want to come back as who I was, I said finally. That version of me doesn't exist anymore. Silence stretched, then a nod. One of them spoke. Then who do you want to be? The question should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like relief. I want to be someone who tells the truth, I said. In my music, in my life, even when it's inconvenient. They exchanged looks, calculating, measuring risk. We can't promise everyone will understand, someone said. I'm not asking for that, I replied. I'm asking for space to exist honestly. When I walked out, nothing was decided, and for the first time that didn't scare me. I found you waiting outside, sitting on the steps, sunglasses pulled low, pretending not to watch every person who passed. When you saw me, you stood immediately. Well, you asked. I didn't say yes, I said. And you didn't say no. I smiled faintly. Exactly. We walked without direction for a while. No destination, just movement. At a crosswalk, you stopped suddenly. What if this is it? You asked. What if life never goes back to how it was? I looked at you, really looked at you. The lines of worry you'd earned standing beside me. The strength you never advertised. Then good, I said. I don't want it to. You laughed softly, shaking your head. You're terrifying. I know, I said. I just figured it out. The weeks that followed were filled with waiting, not the anxious kind, the intentional kind. I wrote more music, but I didn't rush it. I let silence sit between notes. I let words arrive instead of forcing them. One song came out of nowhere late one night. No chorus built for crowds, no bridge designed to explode, just a steady confession about fear, about choice. About the night I cried because loving you meant dismantling everything I thought I needed to be whole. When I played it for you, you didn't say anything at first. Then you whispered, "That's the first time I've heard you sound free." The internet, of course, sensed movement before anything was announced. A studio sighting, a blurry photo, a rumor of negotiations. They buzzed again, hungry and impatient. This time I didn't flinch. A statement was released weeks later. Clear, calm, mine, no denial, no justification, just intention. I would return, but on my terms, art first. Humanity always. The reaction was split, it always is. Some celebrated, some warned, some promised to leave, others promised never to. None of it reached me the way it once had. The night before everything restarted, I stood on the balcony, city lights stretching endlessly below. You joined me, resting your head against my shoulder. "Are you ready?" you asked. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I know why I'm doing it now." "And why is that?" "So I don't disappear again," I said. "Not into them, not into fear." You smiled and squeezed my hand. "Then I'm proud of you." The first performance back wasn't grand. No dramatic entrance, no explosive announcement, just a stage, a microphone, and a song that didn't beg to be loved. When the first note left my mouth, my chest tightened. Not from pressure, from gratitude. I scanned the crowd, not searching for approval but grounding myself in the moment. And then, without meaning to, I cried again. Not the kind of crying that breaks you. The kind that reminds you you're alive. Later backstage, when the noise finally faded, I found you waiting. Same place, same quiet presence. "You did it," you said. "We did," I corrected. You leaned in, resting your forehead against mine, and for a moment everything else dissolved. I never thought my future wife would make me cry like this. But now I understood. Love didn't weaken me. It stripped me down until only the truth remained. And from that truth, I was finally strong enough to choose my own life.